Hello there gorgeous gamers and welcome back to Pure Play TV, where I'm going to talk about my favourite James Bond game ever. In fact, it's probably the best James Bond game so far, but if you're in the lower age brackets, you've probably never heard of it, never mind played the thing. But for us oldies who are around when Pierce Brosnan was Bond, and Bond was a cheesy, mass-murdering, womanising sociopath with the thickest plot armour I've ever seen, then you would appreciate this throwback to a simpler time of video games. The good old days, when controllers had wires, games launched in one piece, and whatever few titles you had were passed around like Bond girls at a casting call. Simpler times. So why does James Bond Everything or Nothing still hold a place in my heart? I first played it as a teenager nearly 20 years ago, and somehow I still remember it vividly. Most games from that era, background noise, but this one, it stuck. For starters, it's just a fun game. Accessible, over the top, and oozing early 2000s Bond charm. The plot? Ridiculous. An evil villain weaponizing nanobots to destroy metal structures. It seemed daft back then, but weirdly, it's quite plausible today. What really made the game stand out was the casting. We got the Bond essentials, Pierce Brosnan, Dame Judi Dench, respect, and John Cleese, but then it goes wild. Shannon Elizabeth as a Bond girl, Heidi Klum as an evil scientist, okay? And then Willem Dafoe with a dodgy accent and an even dodgier ponytail. This wasn't washed up actor voices video game territory either. Dafoe had just done Spider-Man and American Psycho. Back then, having a Hollywood cast in a game was a big deal. Oh, and Jaws shows up too. Yes, that Jaws, from the Roger Moore era. It made zero sense, but back then we didn't demand multiversal logic from our games, we just shrugged and moved on. Despite its nonsense, Everything or Nothing was ahead of its time. It wasn't tied to a movie, so it had creative freedom. The third-person camera was a big change. Finally, we saw Bond and Brosnan's expensive face, along with the slick melee moves that felt like a proper spy experience. And it leaned into the cinematic feel too. Even the level select screen felt like navigating a DVD movie menu. The structure was tight, short missions, multiple difficulties, and depending on your choice, you could either breeze through for that blockbuster pacing, or struggle through on hard mode for a challenge. Personally, I say play it on easy, it's meant to be cheesy fun. This isn't some gritty war sim, it's Bond throwing himself off cliffs without parachutes, shooting henchmen mid-air and landing with a terrible pun. The story? Absolute cheddar cheese. Evil villains with mechanical arms, tech that just barely sounded believable at the time, and now sort of is, but instead of running from the silliness, the game embraces it, and that's why it works. Now let's talk about the Bond games that came after. Once Daniel Craig took over, Bond games tried to be serious. Gritty reboots were in, colourful creativity was out. Quantum of Solace was basically Call of Duty with a tux. Bloodstone came closest to recapturing the third-person action of Everything or Nothing, even sharing the same writer, Bruce Firestein. But it was still bound to the gritty, stoic Craig version of Bond. Then came 007 Legends, and the less said about that, the better. Now the future of Bond lies with IO Interactive, the developer behind Hitman. They're great at mixing serious stealth with unintentional hilarity. If even a hint of Everything or Nothing's tone sneaks into IO's upcoming Bond game, we might finally get something worth being excited about. Until then, go and play Everything or Nothing. It's not just a good Bond game, it's a great game, even today, full stop. And that is the end of this video. Thank you for watching, it's always appreciated, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified whenever we've got new stuff for you to watch. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.